Welcome to the VCOS webinar series. Today, fire sprinklers and the incident commander. I'm John Buckman. I will be serving as the host for today's presentation. But first, a couple things about what the Volunteer and Combination Officer section is doing. I hope that many of you, this is not your first webinar that you have attended. We've increased the number of webinars and the diversity of the topics. So we hope that you are finding them interesting and satisfying to your needs as a chief officer or a company officer or an instructor. We are working on more in-person course deliveries. If you go to the VCOS website, you want to host a course, we are glad to do that. Fire Rescue International is coming up in August. If you haven't registered for that, we do encourage you to attend that. But most importantly, we want you to attend Symposium in the Sun 2023 in Clearwater Beach, November 9th through the 11th. That is the premier event for the Volunteer and Combination Officer section. We usually have about 550 students. We have had for like the last 8 years, we've been sold out. If you haven't registered, you need to get registered as quick as you can. At the end of this presentation, you will get a survey to complete. We want to hear from you. We need to hear from you. Get into the presentation by Chief Ray. We will take questions, but submit your questions digitally. Should be over there on your screen, a place to do chat or to submit your questions, and we can collect those and we'll gather them, and Shane will answer them at the end of the presentation. So now, to introduce our speaker, I first met Shane Ray back in 2001 in Pleasant View, Tennessee. He was an advocate for residential fire sprinklers back then, and he traveled the country sharing the value of residential sprinklers and helped many states and localities pass ordinances to require residential sprinklers. He has served as a volunteer fire chief, town mayor, career firefighter. He received the Volunteer Fire Chief of the Year from Fire Chief Magazine, and now he is president of the National Fire Sprinkler Association. Shane Ray, the floor is yours.
All right. So if you can see my screen again, our hope here is because of all the things that are going on in the country, it's like the fire environment has changed so much. So in talking about these, certainly, and I'm blessed to spend my whole career in the fire department, but as I watch things evolve and change, my goal here is just to increase your awareness of fire protection systems and try to, as somebody told me, it said, you need to connect the fire service and the fire protection industry together, because before the fire, there's a lot of work that goes into protecting our buildings and our communities, as well as after the fire. And you know the role you play with that. But if we can think more holistically, and then hopefully I can enhance some of your tactical considerations, develop some best practices. We've been working on this project for several years. We've been tracking these big fires since 2015. And of course, if you're a member of NFSA, you get an email from me every Friday that tells you about Spotlight on Sprinklers. So that's where you all as the fire service send us your material, send us sprinkler saves, send us things you have. And so then we share with that. So anyway, that's what I hope that we learn, and that naturally we leave as friends. So if I say something counter to what you believe, or you have a question, please put it in the chat. I would like to start with this because the information that you need to make your departments better and yourself better are part of NFPA's ecosystem. And this is where, again, the fire service, the fire protection industry, fire sprinkler contractors, fire alarm contractors, building owners, facility managers, government, everybody comes together in one. And as the NFPA's conference just concluded, Jim Polly says it all the time. It's a big world. Let's protect it together. So the information that you need are going to be in a lot of these documents. I would encourage you that we're going to talk about NFPA 13, which most people know that was the first standard written by NFPA. And so back in 1896, well, our association, NFSA, started in 1905. So we've had a long-standing relationship. Well, NFPA 13R was created and 13D was created in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and again, continues to be improved as we protect more residential properties. Well, most people haven't heard of NFPA 13E, and it's been around since the 1930s. It is a recommended practice for how fire departments operate within sprinklered buildings. So that's a key important document. Our guys in Chicago and New Jersey and around the country do a good job of teaching some of these training programs for fire departments. And I'll conclude our presentation today with an example of some of that. But NFPA 13E will give you directives, and I'm going to touch on some of those things throughout our time. NFPA 1700, fairly new standard, but it's fire department operations and structural firefighting. So again, I would encourage you to use that. I'm going to look and use some examples in there. NFPA 1620 is pre-planning, and certainly 1300 community risk reduction. So I share these stats here to say that while the number of warehouse fires have gone down, the whole point is that a lot of these here, you don't want to see these spikes that cause multi-million-dollar losses. And so that's the challenge we face. If the number of fires go down and the fire losses go up, then that's bad. And we're going to touch on some of that. Why is it more important today? Chief Buckman, I think we got some birds chirping in the background. So I don't know if y'all lost me or lost him, but there's been a 70% increase in the number of buildings protected with fire sprinklers since 1980. Our association tracks the number of fire sprinklers shipped by our manufacturers around the world, but there's also been a 240% increase in that since we started tracking that in 1980. So thus you go to more fires. My own community where I was fire chief and where, again, Chief Buckman said we first met, back in the day when I started in the fire department there in 1984, the church, the school, and the grocery store were the only three buildings that had fire sprinklers in the buildings. And now 70% of the entire built environment in that community is protected with sprinklers. So that's why you're going and seeing more fires. We're seeing more fires in sprinklered building. So that's why we want to do this. And again, you didn't cause the fire. So you had no control over the show until this point. And again, that's what, when we talk about fighting fires in sprinklered buildings, there's been a whole lot of money spent on that facility prior to you getting involved with the fire being active. So that's why you do want to have more familiarity with these systems. I use this to say that nursing homes, hospitals, prisons, jails, it's like, why is the biggest percentage of those sprinkler saves, why is it in those types of occupancies? And the answer is because we've been requiring sprinklers in those, and that's where the fires are occurring. So again, you see residential is the lowest, and that's where the highest percentage of people die. So we work every day to try to change that. Fire sprinkler is effective then and now. The number one cause of sprinkler failure is the water turned off. And that means by us as the fire department as well. So when you look at some of these losses, sometimes our intervention is too premature. So the document on the left that you see is one of our brochures from the 1950s. Again, both that and NFPA back in those days, all using information that comes from you in the fire department. And so we continuously get better at data, and I believe the numbers are higher than that now. So this is one that is the fact that NFPA 13, 13R, and 13D is those are the key documents to how sprinklers are installed. And 13 is all buildings. You can protect the building I'm sitting in. I'm at our headquarters in Maryland, and it's protected with a sprinkler system installed in accordance with NFPA 13. My home, though, down the street is protected by a 13D system because it is a single family dwelling, although it is a townhouse and it is 4 stories tall. So it's in a row of houses like typical goes with this area in Maryland. But a 13R, the apartment complex across the street, is protected with a 13R. So 13, 13R, and 13D. Those are important because of the fact that 13 is made to protect the building. And the biggest distinction I make is 13R and 13D is made to just protect the occupants. We like to use the logo, the slogan, fire sprinklers buy time, time buys life. It buys time for the occupant to escape, and it buys time for the fire department to arrive. So that's a key importance. This is not new. We've had big warehouse fires for our entire careers, but we learned, we improved sprinkler systems. There's been many new inventions in the fire sprinkler industry since then. And for example, this fire I use here, they didn't even have fire department connections in that. So it's like back in those days, you wasn't expected. But now we also use the slogan, when you pull up, hook up, supply the sprinkler system. And this is one of our brochures, again, from the 1950s that says, hey, fire sprinklers and firefighters should go together. It limits, as I heard Chief Buckman say when I was coming back on, limits our exposure to cancer. Protects the facility, doesn't cause environmental harm to the community. There's all types of benefits, but it takes us both nowadays in the building. And this is a brochure that we put out in the 1950s, again, from 13E, that said, hey, here are some suggestions of what you should do. Pull up, send somebody to the alarm panel, the riser room. The next piece the incident commander needs to do is make sure, if it is an extra large facility, one of these gigantic warehouses, make sure you go to the pump room. See if the pumps are running. See if the system's holding pressure. Those are the things. And don't be afraid to reach out to us at NFSA, or if you have a relationship with a local fire sprinkler contractor, those kind of things. So, and it says, do not turn the system off to improve visibility, because that's not going to happen. And realize ventilation sprinklers are not designed to work with ventilation. They are designed for the building to be encapsulated. So that's a key important piece. We was able to burn some acquired structures in Tennessee this last year. And again, we did proof that says, hey, we take this old garage with a pitch roof and an attic. So we put a 13 system in it, protect an ordinary hazard, just like it would be per the code. And we started a fire in there with the system impaired. We had no water to the sprinkler system. All we had was this fire department connection, which was a 2.5-inch connection. And so you can see from this chart, in the bottom piece, that's the attic. When the drywall failed in the garage part of this large structure, you can see where the fire immediately went into the attic and the temperatures increased greatly. And we was trying to let it go for 10 minutes. We was wanting to use NFPA 1710 and 1720 standards of saying by the time you go through the whole process, our fire department response time of 9 minutes and 20 seconds total from call to turnout. But we had a smoke explosion. I didn't have the garage door raised up high enough, so we had a little smoke explosion that made us all excited at about 8 minutes and 30 seconds. And when that happened, we just pumped the fire department connection. And even with every sprinkler device activated in that and no water coming out, when we pumped it at 150 PSI into that single 2.5, you see what it did to the entire fire. It killed the temperature from over 1,500 degrees down to less than 300. So when we say pull up, hook up, if you don't get anything else out of this presentation, again, that's one of those things. And it spells this out. I encourage you to go look at 13E. It's been a document around for a long time. FM Global has a class that you can take online that's called Fighting Fire in Sprinkler Buildings. It's a great program. It, however, misses some 13D and R scenarios. It mostly takes care of what FM insures, but it's still a great training program. So I've kind of summed it up for you here that says you need a standard operating procedure. Does the first in engine go to the fire department connection, or is it the second? In most places, the engine goes to the alarm panel and the second engine goes to the fire department connection. But if you do know you have an active fire in one of these big buildings, whether it's your local grocery retailer, whether it's one of your typical mercantile stores, a big Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, Target, all your normal big box stores, it's like, do not delay hooking up to that system, because you're simply just delaying the water. And I'll show you some pictures and share some fires here quick about what that is. But do not shut it off to improve visibility. It's hard to believe, but in these big giant warehouses, the Amazons and the Walmart distribution centers and Gap, everything that's out there, it's like those systems are designed to run for 2 hours on their own. 2 hours, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, and 2 hours. And I'll reiterate that again later with the let it run for 90 minutes in some of these facilities. And as the fire gets contained, the visibility will improve. I know that's hard to believe, but I've witnessed it myself, and I'll show you some pictures of some recent tests we did. But again, don't shut it off. Know your water supply. Know the difference between a municipal hydrant and a yard hydrant and what those do in these big buildings. But you got to get your fire stream and your ladder supplies from somewhere else. The water from the yard hydrants is not going to be that you're stealing water from the system. So follow the good old days. I put these 5.1 point stuff in here because I joke with my codes and standards and engineering team here at NFSA that they all have to have these numbers. So, but remember that routine ventilation procedures may hinder effective sprinkler operations. So we don't ever want that on our hand, and realize they are not made for that. So again, here's a recent bathroom test that I say this is an NFPA 13D fire. So in these small bathrooms, it doesn't have to be protected, right? There's no sprinkler required, although there's sprinklers out in the hallway. So again, you see this bathroom is burned, and you can see the burn markation. It got up to over 1,100 degrees in that bathroom at the ceiling. But out in the hallway, this is what it looked like. However, as firefighters, you still have to go in and make an attack, make the rescues. So you can see down the hall, we had 2 bedrooms down there. The bedroom across the hall had a closed door. So with the door closed, as Chief Brunacini said when he witnessed some of these tests years ago in Spartanburg, South Carolina, he said, Shane, we could have sit in that room and drank coffee. I'm like, yes, we would not want to as Mrs. Smith, but get to the victims and get them out. The hallway, down the hallway, the doors were open. And we're simply saying, go get to those. You couldn't see anything 30 seconds after that sprinkler operated in the hallway. It activated both fire sprinklers in the hallway. There was 0 visibility, and you're crawling around in water. But let that sprinkler keep working. It's 1,400 degrees in the bathroom, and it's 200 degrees outside the door, roughly. So again, you can still make that hallway, get to the people, shut the door to isolate you and the victims from the fire. And we know that works, but it's still a messy environment in that building. So I encourage you to develop your SOPs, but those of us that have all sprinklered houses, we're still going to have to make rescues. And that's what this picture here on the left's a fire in an apartment complex that was inside the building, and the sprinkler contained it. But you still could have people on the balconies because they can't see to get down the hallways. So go ahead and get your normal operations, but don't forget, in some of these, like in my home, it doesn't have a fire department connection. So just let it work. But in an apartment complex, it could have a fire department connection, or it could not. And so that's a key, is to make sure. But the picture on the right where you see the flames at the roof, that was from a lightning strike. There are no sprinklers in the attics of those buildings. That's what NFPA 13 are. There's no sprinklers in attics and void spaces. And that's okay, because it's only in there to give people time to escape and you to arrive. So at the point when you see the roof burning off of it, we just need to make sure we don't kill any firefighters, but go clear the building, go clear all that floor while you get set up to go to defensive operations on that attic space. And that's just vital that you don't delay getting the building cleared. But also don't delay the water. And we'll show you that with fast water is the fact that says the sprinklers are getting water if it's inside where they're at, but don't delay it. This happens to be this is one I use to say, hey, when you have a fire, we also know about it. So news travels fast nowadays. We're watching it. We can Google the building. We can talk to the contractors who installed the systems. This is a case where, again, the system was turned off, and unfortunately, a firefighter died in this. So the system's turned off, and again, without pumping the connection, the outcome was not good. So a citizen and the firefighter died in this facility. And it's like, that's what we want to prevent, because even if the valve's turned off, because whether it's out of service for maintenance and somebody failed to turn it back on, or whether it's a religious practice or something that they turn the system off for one day and then turn it back on, it's like that just happened to be the bad day. Whatever the issue is, pump the fire department connection. And again, riots, there's all kinds of things that says, all right, when do we turn the system off? As the incident commander, it's like, maybe you don't want to turn the sprinkler system off in the Walgreens that they've set on fire, or if the auto zone is protected with sprinklers, just let the sprinkler that's activated continue operating. The worst case, they're a whole lot better with water damage than they are with the building burned down, and we'll address that too. Is in these big buildings, do not turn the system off just to try to save water damage, because trust me, in these big warehouses and things, the sprinkler system is a minute concern for water damage in comparison to the fire plume going and setting more things on fire that causes it to overrun the sprinkler. And in these big giant buildings, if it overruns the sprinkler and you don't support the sprinkler, the likelihood that any fire department in America can catch the thing is very, very rare. And this, you see headlines that says this happened to be a big warehouse fire where they sued the community because of environmental runoff issues. So again, there's always bad consequences to some. And then the sad thing was, we seen that the fire in Indiana, where Walmart put in a thing the first time I'd ever seen in my career, that they not only name the fire department and their intent, they have the intent that they can sue and all the legal things people have to go through, but they named every fire department and every responder that came to the fire. Now, hopefully that don't ever come to fruition, and I'm quite sure it won't, but still that shows you a change in the day and time, and it's sad as it is. It's the way it goes. We believe there's a fire every week in these types of facilities, so it's not anything new to have these fires. And again, we've been tracking them since 2015. However, most of them are contained, and if you ever get one, then please share it with us. So we'd love to know, love to hear about it. We need people with firsthand action with these that can get to the bottom of this. And a special thank you to the state of Indiana Fire Marshal and the Plainfield Fire Department. They are working with us to try to learn from their event and those kind of things. So there is a lot to do out there. There's a lot of fires there. It was certainly in Indiana, probably made the most press, but was not the first. There's been many buildings that burned to the ground way prior to to that fire that just happened to make more news. So it is a changing environment out there. A lot different from your homes to high rises. And certainly they're capturing media attention when it happens that way. But we're seeing old malls converted into distribution centers. When that happens, typically there's a change in the fire protection systems. Certainly we're seeing office buildings change to residential. That creates another environment as well with the system. So I encourage anybody that's a AHJ out there to be open-minded to work with our fire sprinkler contractors on this, because again, your fire sprinkler contractors and your fire alarm technicians, that's what they do all the time, all day, every day. So the chances that we're more of an expert, I've certainly been an advocate for my whole life, but I learned something every day in this role, because again, we have to be generalists in our role and as in the fire service, but their specialty is that, and they'll help you accomplish what's needed for yourself, the owner, and everybody else. So I encourage you to work with them. I use this picture to say, here's a high-rise building that picture I took in downtown Nashville. I'm like, this building and the building on the right, I'm like, what's the difference? One's laid down in a cornfield and the other's standing up in a downtown city. The difference is the high-rise building has compartmentalization. The other building that's 1.3 million square feet has no compartmentalization whatsoever. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we face. And then again, the FDC, this is the fire department connection on that high-rise. So you see the FDC, it's labeled, and as I jokingly say, but not really jokingly, is they call it a fire department connection for a reason. And it's because we want you to connect to it. Now, the one on the left there, you see that that's clearly the test header. So that's how they test the fire pump in that building. So it's like that thing's got a 1,000-gallon-a-minute pump in the building. So you can see from the number of hose outlets it has. So again, those systems are in there for a reason. Utilize them. Now, in a high-rise building, the key is pump the system. If it supports the standpipe and the sprinkler, then just realize that. And two, once you confirm in that building that, hey, this is an e-cigarette on the bed, and I can clearly see it. I have a thermal imaging camera. The fire's out. They call out and say, command, the fire is out. It's an e-cigarette on the bed. It's like, fine, go valve the system out. Valve that floor control valve out and shut that particular floor off. There's ways to do that and not interrupt the entire building. So again, knowing how to interact with these systems is vitally important. And most importantly, thanks to the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, we want to advocate for initiative number 15, which is strengthen enforcement of codes and standards for fire sprinklers. And again, the last thing we want to happen, which is why I dedicate so much of my time to this topic, above and beyond my own role with the association, is the fact that I do not ever want a firefighter to die in one of these sprinklered buildings, because it does not have to happen. It absolutely does not have to happen. So with your help and spreading the good word, we can do that. So here's a fire that again happened that says, all right, this is not Indiana, but it was in 2016. And again, valve out the systems, and then it can't catch back up. And these systems are designed to run for hours. So do not open the doors and do not turn the system off. And again, even in Indiana, that did not happen. Although you heard it on a radio, it's like that still didn't happen. Just because they said it on a radio doesn't mean it occurred. So that's why I encourage you to get all your facts before we're critical. And these fires have been happening. This is an Amazon distribution center that had large commodity distribution. So you could get a couch, a kayak. All these places that burn have their own specialty. In this case, did it overrun the system? Yes, or it's an outside-in fire that gets above the system. So again, gets on the roof, can't get a hold of it, whatever the case is. But again, once it overruns the system, it's unlike, I don't know any fire department that can catch it. So again, here's an example of a smoke explosion. But if your fire department connection, if you're pumping it like you're supposed to, and it looks like this, the chances are that there's no water going in to that building, which is a disadvantage of the fire department connection not being on the building, right? We didn't put fire department connections on high-rise buildings back in the day, or we didn't want them because with glass falls, cuts our hoses, whatever the case may be. But there's consequences too to moving it out in the yard that said, all right, something stopped up between here and the system, or it's a dry pipe system that's been turned off that maybe you have to go turn it on. So again, that's why get there, go to the alarm panel, pump the connection, get somebody to the riser room, get somebody to the pump room, and make sure that the systems are functioning. This is a video I like to share that gives you an example of the difference with sprinklers and without sprinklers, but I want you to pay particular attention to the fire plume in the middle. It takes some time for this. And again, this is how we test. This has cardboard boxes with styrofoam cups inside of it. And so it gives a big heat release rate. And in this case, it was an enormous heat release rate.
I'll take the west. I'll take the west. I'll take the east one.
Fire protection codes and standards vary worldwide. Although your facilities may meet local codes, is that enough to ensure your business remains resilient? FM Global has over 100 years' experience doing scientific research to prevent disasters at your facilities. You are about to see what could happen in a warehouse during a large-scale fire. Watch the difference between a facility that's well protected and one that's not. The storage on each side is identical, but only one is protected with a fire sprinkler. Watch how quickly the fire develops. A fire like this can shut down your facility and even disrupt your supply chain unless you're protected. The fire on the right is being controlled in under a minute. But the fire on the left grows more destructive. Such a fire could impact your market share, shareholder value, and corporate reputation. Two minutes have passed. The fire department won't arrive on average for another 8 minutes or longer. Notice on your left the amount of smoke. That fire will soon generate temperatures over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, 538 degrees Celsius, enough to weaken structural steel and collapse your building. The fire on the right is completely controlled. An investment in sprinkler protection is an investment in your business resilience.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and test the building.
I use that video to say, but you could still see there's fire burning down where it was started at. And so that's where there is some vertical spread to it and horizontal spread to it naturally, that when you can't see whether it's inside of a retail center like this picture that I'm showing here inside of a Home Depot that says in that case there, it's like we need to pump the system because there's no water flowing from those sprinklers. You can see the neutral plane of the fire. So it's like the system is not flowing water. So that's where it's like pull up, hook up, and get the system flowing water because it's going to take some time for that to contain that fire. And again, the difference, if you'll notice in the video when he said that the fire is under control, well, that means there is a big difference between control and final extinguishment. And there's also difference in sprinklers of control mode and suppression sprinkler devices. So again, knowing those things is vitally important. But the sprinklers, for example, like inside this Home Depot, would probably flow from the ceiling of that thing 130 gallons of water a minute. Whereas in one of them large distribution centers, we know that the first sprinklers that kicked on in that was flowing about 270 gallons of water a minute. 270 gallons of water a minute from a single sprinkler. So again, when you pull up, hook up, because we don't want these outcomes. The last thing we ever want to see is a big loss from a building that it didn't have to be. Now, this was one case where the sprinkler was turned off, the sprinkler system was valved out, and somebody set the building on fire. But this, as you can tell, is not your normal looking Home Depot. So all these big chain companies know their facilities. They know their buildings. They know what they were built for. This is me in another facility that was built across town from the one that burned. And so I'm looking in there and I'm like, yep, not as high as a typical Home Depot, has lots more obstructions in that. But this 3 weeks later is a Home Depot that was a success. Again, a newer Home Depot, not as old of a Home Depot. Fire department, again, pulled up, hook up, pump the connections, get your lines in the building, but treat these aisles in these things as a collapse zone, because getting in those aisles is just going to be big danger. And in those big warehouses, you got the 90 minutes you want to let the sprinkler system run is a good time to get your hoses in place, get all your extra air. Those are all things as an incident commander you've got to consider that says, I'm going to need a lot of resources to operate 400 feet in this building. But you're going to have to just support the system, let it work, make sure the fire pump's holding pressure. And again, you can prevent some of these things. And even in these cases, it's like, let the system run. All this merchandise is damaged, and all of these big retailers, they are very familiar with fire in their facilities. So, it may be your first time at a fire in one of them, but I assure you it is not their first fire. But be careful in those collapse zones. So, and again, we know about these fires as soon as they're going on, because here again, I'll run through these, but fire in a Walmart's intentionally set on fire. This is a body cam from a police officer that's looking at it in there. And it's like, we do not want to see this. It's like, it shouldn't burn through the roof. But again, this was an older store. We know what kind of sprinkler sprinkler devices were in there. We know they needed to be upgraded. So does the building owner, everything else. But pull up, hook up, and let them work. And then here that you can see that they did pull up, they did hook up, they got their lines in place. And even though it was a pretty significant fire, they still caught it. Here's a newer situation. This from my good friends in Columbia, my old home state of South Carolina after Tennessee, but I was just back there for Home Fire Sprinkler Week. And here you can hardly tell there was damage right from the outside. So the sprinklers did what they were supposed to do. The fire department got their lines in place. And all those things and the outcome. And again, Walmart's going to take care of this, but you can see that water on the floor in these things is not as damaging as you think. And every headline afterwards is going to read, oh, smoke, fire, and water damage ruins millions of dollars. It's like, yep, but it didn't burn the whole store down. So that's really good. And then here's a headline that Walmart raises questions about fire protection systems. And it's like, not to the educated, really. But it does from the fact that says, what do we need to do to educate all ourselves? It says, hey, nobody knows what it's like in that system. If it was flowing nearly 2,000 gallons of water a minute, we have no idea what firefighters face in that environment. So it's like, they're never a waste of money, as this thing says. It's like those buildings have some of the best systems money can buy. So NFPA 1700 addresses specifically in there 4 wirehouses. And again, there's lots of information in those. This was the fact, again, I had the opportunity to go the day after the fire to Indiana, was out there on the scene. Thanks again to the state fire marshal and the fire department. But again, somber day to see that we have these losses. But again, I don't think there's any fire department in America that knows what it's like to have 2,000 gallons of water a minute. That was a 4-story picking module inside that thing. So I like to say it's like having 5 Walmarts inside of a building. So, but again, the system designed to work. This is the new Walmart on the other side of town, their new distribution center. But here's where the fire pumps are, 2 2,500 gallon a minute fire pumps. So most of us don't run 2,500 gallon a minute pumpers. So you just let the system work. Get your stuff ready, corridor off the area, know that says, hey, this is in this case, that building that I'm at there, the new facility is like 2.6 million square feet. And again, this is just an example of one of over 40 risers in that building. So lots of sprinkler systems in the building. And if you could read that plate, the system is designed to flow 2,700 gallons of water a minute at 138 PSI. So if you're at the pump house that I first showed the picture of, and the pump's holding at 155 pounds, then you know that the system's working and it's working fine. So again, very difficult with these automated retrieval systems in these buildings, as all the way back to Francis Brannigan, Know Your Buildings. These systems, again, new, they look complicated and intense, but they are not. This is showing you a picture of a very early warning smoke detection system. So it's called a VESDA. That's not tied to the sprinkler system itself, and then you're seeing a picture of a K25 sprinkler. And so they're every 8 feet inside that facility. So again, the system's designed, but it's 1,000 feet from one side of that building to the other. So it's over 80 feet to that roof deck that you see in the picture on the right. And as I go through there, I'm like, I have no idea how to truly make sure we get this thing done with overhaul. And as Dr. Steve Kerber and Billy Goldfeder were texting with me on that, they said, I texted them and they said, hey, we're going to have like the Red Adair of warehouse fires if these things keep going. Because again, it's going to overwhelm the local fire department's ability. But again, a key here is it says if there's any doubt that the control of the fire has been gained, just let the sprinkler system run for longer than 90 minutes. So again, don't ventilate up front. It's like, I know it's going to be smoky. You are not going to be able to see for the first hour or so, but once the fire starts, once the sprinklers and you get control of the fire, the visibility will begin to improve. And then it'll even tell you in here, at that point, when you can get to where you can start to see, then you should consider using some of the manual ventilation systems. So again, I really appreciate the time. I work for a great industry. I took this job because, again, I don't sell anything. I don't make any money for selling it. But the fire sprinkler industry is a stronger industry, is a safer world, and we're just trying to get everybody familiar with it. We got a lot of resources out here. We got side-by-side burn demonstration trailers. We have valve trailers. We're getting more of them. And again, thanks to the grants program, we've had these. This is one that I got as the fire chief in Pleasant View in 2003 from some of the first Fire Act grants. And we got it to train firefighters on the systems they were going to see in our community. So, and we're working with many of you all that are fire departments out across America in doing some of these. So a special thanks to our team here at NFSA that does that. So we have demonstration. You can go on our website at nfsa.org and look at our training programs. You can also request those demonstration trailers. So again, lots going on. This is a picture of the inside of one of our newer trailers. This is a picture of it so we can flow just like you were standing in a stairwell. You can pump the fire department connection. You can control the valves. And so again, there's not enough of these or enough of us to do the demand that we got, but in partnership with the state fire training directors and fire marshals and all of you all as fire chiefs across the country, we just say thank you because we're just trying to get the word out. And that's what I'm doing today. So thank you all. God bless you. And I hope to see you down the road, especially at VCOS.
Well, thank you, Shane. What an outstanding presentation. A couple things that I'm looking for questions. I don't see any questions, but 96% effectiveness of sprinklers is one of the big takeaways. When you think about sprinklers and think, oh, they don't work. Well, Shane has the statistics to show that indeed it does work. So keep that in mind. I guess one of the things that I heard you say multiple times, Shane, was when you pull up, hook up. And I think when you look at some of these fires, maybe that's part of the issue is we're not used to hitting the fire department connection. So maybe we need to get back in the habit of that. So get in the habit of connecting to the sprinkler system, making sure that we're pumping to it to the best of our ability.
Yep, pump it at
fires
100.
in these buildings are occurring every week was something that you said. Wow, these big warehouses, that obviously, yes, not all the fires, as you said, make the news, but they are happening more frequently. And they're also building these buildings in more rural in suburban areas where maybe the fire department doesn't have the staffing or the equipment to be able to fight those kind of fires. So the sprinkler system becomes a key tool in making sure that it does its job and makes the firefighter's job a whole lot easier. I had not heard this before. Maybe others on this audience have. I would tell you, Shane, we got people from Kansas City, state of Washington, Arizona, Louisiana, Alabama, and Georgia in attendance. But that the collapse zone, never thought about the space between the storage, between the racks, is a collapse zone. That when you send firefighters in there, that you could have a collapse and firefighters be injured and or killed. So I think for me, that was something that I had not heard before. So something to be concerned about. I'll make this final comment and then go back to Shane if he has anything else he'd like to add. But NFPA 1700 is a new recommended standard, recommended practice. I encourage you to get a copy of it tomorrow. It is very useful in helping you plan your fire suppression activities. So Shane, anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, the International Society of Fire Service Instructors, which are near and dear to our heart, Chief, as well. They are doing training programs on NFPA 1700. We're doing burns with them, but definitely 1700 and 13E needs to be in the hands of every incident commander that there is, and it needs to be in the operational side of the fire department.
We do have two questions. Have you had any experience with lawsuits where the fire departments were blamed for not being more interventional than just using the sprinkler system? 90 minutes of sprinklers alone seems quite a bit of standing around.
Well, I assure you that there's tons of lawsuits. And
Shane, you got anything for that?
Yeah, can you hear me? That's me again. Somehow I get cut off, but it was just like a while ago. It's like if Nan, I don't know, Nan, what's happening on your end, but I'm talking.
Go ahead, Chief. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. But yes, there's certainly been tons of lawsuits, but there's no standing around. By the time you get enough air to figure out how to get in the building, and again, that's just on those big distributions centers. The Walmart, just your regular Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, Target. I showed you pictures of some of them in there. Those were all arson fires. And again, we've had maydays from firefighters in those buildings because, again, unexpectedly, those sprinklers in those buildings flowing 130, 150 gallons a minute in those new systems. So, again, that building fills up with smoke really quick. But I assure you, you won't be standing around for 90 minutes. By the time you get everything in place, get your lines in place, and in the Walmart stores and the facilities, you're going to have to actively take intervention in those. So rescues. Now, naturally, I wouldn't recommend you search a 2 million square foot distribution center because people in there are supposed to be awake, alert, and oriented. Have we had a death in one? Yes, we've had a death in one. But my understanding of that death, the person was somewhere in the building they wasn't supposed to be and was asleep on the job. So, again, could we have prevented that? I don't think so. The other, there you go, Chief.
All right. What advice beyond pull up and hook up would you have for the pump operator on a fire department connection?
Good question. Monitor to make sure if you pump the system and you pump it at 150 PSI, unless there's a sign that tells you to do something different. And so as long as you're pumping that and it's maintaining it, but if you keep pumping it and your lines are collapsed, or like that picture I showed, it appears that there's no water going anywhere and your hoses are just fully pressurized and you feel like there's no water getting in, then the system's closed somewhere, or there's a check valve that's underground that, again, can't be maintained, which is another reason that says as an AHJ, you want to put it out by the street. That sounds like a good idea, but from a fire protection standpoint, I want it as close to the sprinkler riser as I can possibly get it because, again, it goes direct in there. I don't have to worry about things in between it. I don't have to worry about it being broke underground. So again, those are just all things that we learn in our careers over time. But
Okay, one more question. What is your recommendation to fire departments regarding the best way to train for the types of fires you have described? Where do they start?
start by certainly these webinars, taking the classes. I've been fortunate to do a lot with the Blue Card and talking about big boxes in their system specifically for their incident commanders. They got a fantastic program with that. FM has an online class. UL Fire Safety Research Institute, UL FSRI. They've got lots on the new fire environment. But then also we have Sprinklers 101 that's online programs. We have Technical Tuesday, which talks more in a technical sense of it, but that's how to get started. And then two, our field operations people out in the field and our industry promotion teams that are in different cities across the country. It's like, look up your NFSA rep, be familiar with them. We do all types of training programs and classes out across the country.
All right. Well, I want to thank Shane, Chief Ray, for putting the effort into coming with us today. He has a passion for sharing this with the fire service that is beyond anyone else that I have seen. So thank you for coming on. Appreciate all the attendees. For those of you that know people who didn't see the live presentation, it will be it has been being recorded, and it will be posted in the next 24 hours, and you'll get an email about where that's been posted at. So with that, we were done for the day, and thank you all very much. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.